All right. Hello. Welcome to today's class, Wednesday, March 20th, 2024. We are today going to shift to session 4 of invitation marketing and discuss our author biography and discuss our book description. Marketing is a practice, particularly digitally now, where we have to kind of start way ahead of when our work is going to actually happen. So if we know we have an event or something that we want to drive audiences to, we're going to start way ahead of that to begin thinking about how, when, where to be posting our content, so that we have the ability to give audiences a bit longer period of time to either buy or join the webinar or sign up or what have you. Today, we're going to start talking about your author bio and your book description for a number of reasons. The main ones, though, are that I want to equip you with the ability to clearly articulate your idea of who you are as an author, your author persona. And I also want to make sure we equip you with the ability to articulate what your book is going to be about. Because a lot of the times, even as a professional writer, I'll start out writing, okay, this is what it's about. And it's this really lengthy description. And then I give it a day, come back, oh, I can take this out. This is redundant. This is repetitive. I'm not really sure I need to say this. But then what that does is it kind of allows us to really hone in on those key topics that we're going to be discussing, key words that we're going to want to include, key concepts, key topics, as well as kind of define ourselves as, I am writing this book because this is who I am as an author. This is what makes me me, and this is why I'm the person that you should be listening to on this topic. Another reason is that we find that a lot of authors are writing a book to facilitate either a career change, an additional business, a new business that they're going to be starting. And sometimes that entails branding. You might, because you're building out your maybe a new professional avenue, you are kind of in the processes or already have thought about what that brand's going to look like and feel like. A lot of the times we also want to align that with who we are as an author, and maybe even how we are going to discuss our topic, how we're going to talk about our topic. And that's something also that really we want to start thinking about front-loaded work, so that when the time comes where we do need to sit and articulate things to an audience, we are very capable of doing that in a succinct and concise manner. So I'm going to share my screen. We can jump into the workbook and start talking about specifically what that means. It's time to take your author persona to the next level with your official bio and book description. While these may change as you go through revisions, it's important to get a first draft of these pieces written now, and you can revise later. And that's something I really want to emphasize. What you come up with at this point in the process could very easily be different than what you have at the end of the process when you're going through your pre-sale. And that's okay. Nothing that you are creating this early in the process are we going to say, like, concretely, you have to commit to this. You can never change this. You can never change this verbiage, because that's not realistic. A lot of the times we go into things with these big ideas, and then once we get in the minutia of the process, we start to realize, okay, maybe I was being a little bit unrealistic because I've never been through this before. I've never written a book. I've never raised a child. I've never, everybody always, I say often, actually, I was the best parent before I had kids. And a lot of times it's the same with a book. I was the best author before I actually sat down and realized how hard it is and how much work it takes to write a book. So by no means am I going to say anything you come up with today in this class, you must commit to. You might go through revisions and find, I don't know that I want to talk about this particular topic. I don't know that I want to include this, or I do want to include more. I also want to talk about this. And that's going to shift maybe not only your book description, but also the author persona that you would attach to that piece of written material. So by no means am I asking for commitments today. Please know that also. When writing your biography, you're walking a fine line between humility and pride. Be honest and direct, and don't be afraid to brag or highlight professional achievements or personal accomplishments. But you want to do those things without exaggerating, or, the workbook says puffery, where we're puffing our chest and, really perhaps inflating the actual accolade of some kind. The key is that you need to communicate what you want to communicate with your author bio is that you are the best person possible to deliver the information that your book is going to deliver. Why are you qualified to write on this topic, and why should readers believe you? A lot of those questions, those W questions I just raised, also relate a lot to credibility and to trust, an audience trusting an author. We want to walk that fine line. We do want to talk about our accomplishments. We do want to talk about what sets us up as the person to discuss this topic. But we still want to be relatable to the audience. We do want to show them we're maybe a SME of some kind, but we don't want to elevate ourselves too much that there's kind of this discrepancy between us and our audience that may make them feel as though it's a little bit more difficult to engage, a little bit more difficult to connect personally with you as an author. So we do want to always walk that line of building credibility with our titles, our education, our achievements, but also ask ourselves, am I creating a persona that my audience is still going to very easily be able to relate to and engage with? Because a lot of times it is very possible to lose audiences by feeling as though I need to be this me. I can never say I don't know something. I can never, act as in a manner that doesn't always seem like I'm in control of everything. But the thing of it is your audience has vulnerabilities. You're most likely that's why they're reading your book, or using your services in this new business is because perhaps they've established a vulnerability, or an area where they want to know more or strengthen a quality. So we do want to say, I'm the person that you want to talk to or engage with about this topic because. But at the same time, we also want to perhaps discuss the personal nature of what drew us to that topic or what drew us to this new career path, because we do want to still pad it just enough that the audience is going to have an easy time receiving that, digesting it, and still feel as though it is 100% relevant and relatable to them and to their lives. You want to give them enough information that they trust you, and cultivating that trust, because trust is going to be vital. If you want people to read your book on a topic, you want them to know that you are coming from a knowledgeable perspective and that you're coming from an experienced perspective. What have you done that makes you the person that they need to learn from? How do you answer the question, why you? And if there's one question, author bios are actually quite brief. They're not a ton of characters or words. If there's one question you need to answer in your book description or in your bio, it's why you. Why are you the person to write this book? Why are you the person to listen to? And then there's some helpful tips. Do write it in the third person. Use your name your preferred pronouns. I'm just making sure. I see Lacan. I see that you've raised your hand. What can I help you with?
Yeah, it's just the question about the why you question. Like you said, you don't want to come across puffed up, etc., etc.
Yes.
But I guess, how do you convince someone without selling your credentials, how do you find the balance? Because I guess this is the struggle that you could, so for example, from my perspective, I may just say what I say and it doesn't actually mean anything to me, but how do you kind of influence how people interpret what you're saying?
Right.
It's
So
just
I
my
think
question. I don't know if you're
no,
going to
that's a
explain it
great,
later on.
yeah, it's an absolutely wonderful question. And I think you touched on something. You can say something, it's the way you say it, I think. That and because you do want to talk about your accolades, you do want to talk about your achievements, because that is kind of what's going to establish some level of credibility. Credibility is about, that's a black and white thing. Trust is a sentiment. That's more something that is built through the way you speak to your audience. And I think the best way to phrase it is, are you talking down to them or are you talking across to them? Because that's a lot of times where that discrepancy exists. If you're talking down to them, they're going to feel lower than you and they're not going to want to feel that. If you're talking across to them, more conversational, less perhaps exaggeration or focus on those exact achievements and accolades, and more focus on you and why you are the person to talk about this, perhaps separate from your accolades. Personally, what have you gone through to be in this position? It's going to be a lot about the way you say that, the tone, the verbiage, that's going to build that trust. Credibility, black and white. These are my achievements. These are my accolades. Trust is a sentiment. How are you talking to your audience? And is it in a way that they're going to say, yeah, I feel like he gets this, and I feel like I do want to hear more of what he has to say, instead of perhaps having that discrepancy, that disparity where they say, I think I've had enough. I'm not sure I want to engage with someone who perhaps makes me feel as though I'm not as intelligent or experienced as I feel I am. Does that make
Makes
sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Awesome.
Very great question. Very great question. And I really appreciate you bringing that up. And then, yeah, this next section of the workbook, which is more about like the editing side and the logistics side. Write it in third person. Use your name and your pronouns to discuss yourself. Explain what you do, but don't use jargon. Marketing is a practice that historically perhaps focused a lot on jargon, but all writing now, that's marketing, that's long form, it's an email, it's a research paper. You do want to stay away from jargon, because not everyone might know that jargon or use it the same way that you do. And that's once again going to create that disparity where your audience may feel like you're condescending or talking down to them a bit, because you're using this term in a manner of fact that makes them feel like, well, I should know this, but I don't. So obviously I shouldn't be reading this book, because it's not using my language. It's not using, verbiage that I'm comfortable with or that I know a ton about. So this book must not be for me. So we do want to kind of stay away from that. If there is a term that you're going to use, particularly if you're going to use it repetitively throughout your bio, throughout your book, throughout, any of that, you want to talk about what it means and why it should matter. And you want to talk about why it matters to your overall concept that you're discussing. And you also want to talk about why you want the reader to know that. Why should it be important to them? Include, if appropriate, a personal peek into your life, share more details about one of your roles, and keep it short. So the author bio should actually only be 100 to 150 words, which is why it takes some strategy, because a lot of the times, anytime even as a professional writer, when I sit down to write something, say a blog post that's supposed to have 800 words, I start out with like 1,600, and then kind of pare that down, because then if I come back the next day, it's easy for me to see where I've gotten redundant, perhaps where I could be more succinct and concise about a particular topic that's being discussed. So don't be intimidated if the first time we sit down and write this bio, it's over that character limit, because all you got to do is give it some time and some space, come back to it, and it's easier to be more objective about what is important to say and what perhaps you can discuss in the book as opposed to in the bio. So there is an activity here for your author bio, and these are kind of the questions that we want your bio to answer. Who are you? How did you get here? Why should I care? And then in class on Monday, we talked a lot about the wink, because the wink is this kind of, the only way I can phrase it is like a little cheeky, piece of perhaps humor at the end, where you use humor or you use puns in a way that also, perhaps creates a little bit of levity. The example that the book uses is Jane hopes to write her next other people's novels instead. And I think on Monday, the example that was given was, so-and-so hopes that he can maybe write another book on video games when he's done, playing video games, because he was, but something like that perhaps, it's not like a, it's more of a very kind of soft, cheeky little phrase, or joke, or something that has a little bit of humor to in the mood of the bio. But I think it is important to note, and this is something very important to note. Does a wink really, is it applicable to your audience? If you're writing a book about grief, if you're writing a book about brain surgery, something that perhaps particularly wouldn't fit with something cheeky like that, don't use it. Don't think you have to. We want the tone of our bio and description to fit when you do you're done. Hold on. It looks like I'm having some internet problems.
Oh, okay, cool. I thought it was just me. Okay, cool.
No. Hold on. Let me try and switch to my hotspot. I don't know why, but I literally, all 10, 11 years I've lived in this home, I've had terrible internet issues and a lot of things, but that doesn't seem to improve it. Is that better now? Okay.
Okay. Yeah, better, yeah.
Good deal. If it happens again, please just by all means let me know. So yes, I think just when your bio's done, read through it, make sure to ask yourself, is the tone that I'm creating goodness. Hold on, everybody.
Yeah.
Hold on. Hold on. Let's give this a try. All right. Let's see if this makes it any better. Okay, give it a moment. All right. Is that working better?
So far, yeah.
So far, that's a good response.
Sorry.
The image is definitely clearer.
Yes, yes. So yeah, just when you're done with your bio, ask yourself, does the tone I'm using in this match the tone that everything else I'm going to write is going to be written with? And if the answer is yes, then you're on the right track. Okay, back to and then here are some bio examples. So if you we always are going to give you templates to kind of do things to save time. However, I want you to feel empowered to use these templates kind of as a mathematical like structure, like, okay, the first sentence is about this. The third sentence is about this. I really want to include these accolades. So I think the templates are great for structure, but as far as the actual content, I really, really want that to come personally from you and be written in a manner and use verbiage in a manner that really truly is in alignment with you, who you are, who you're going to be as an author, and the topic of choice that you're going to write about, as well as kind of who the audience is. Book description template is also in here as well. Once again, the goal is about 150 to 200 words with the book description. And then once again, we've given you a template, or I'm going to say formula instead of template. I think template implies that it's like there's a blank here. I put my name here. I want you to look at these more as formulas. As to how to compose, as opposed to, let's say, a template. So I'm going to say, here's your formula for your book description. Use a headline or a hook, which is kind of perhaps your 10-second elevator pitch, something that's interesting and attention grabbing. The exposition is really, you give them a taste of what's in store when they read your book, perhaps about the topic, the theme, interviews that are going to be included. But we don't have to spill all the beans. We just kind of bait a little bit, bait the hook, that we start with the hook, then we bait it. And then the closing is where you're going to establish the value that you want to present to your audience. If you read my book, if you, whatever the call to action is, what should they take away from that? And that doesn't just have to be knowledge, because if you're giving them knowledge, you may also want that to be building confidence. So I would love to see, when you're talking about your closing and what your audience should take away, there should be those black and white facts. I want you to walk away knowing XYZ. I want you to walk away with the knowledge of XYZ, but also talk about the less tangible, the intangible parts of human feeling or human experience that you also want them to walk away from. So in the closing, you can absolutely talk about the tangibles, but include at least one intangible, a feeling or an experience that you want this person to walk away from when they close the book. There's also some book description examples in here as well for you to review. And then brainstorming your book cover. This is a separate, additional, very, very bonus activity. The reason I like it is because, number one, if you are building out a business, this gives you an opportunity to perhaps align your book cover and the visuals around your book with your brand. Is there a certain type? Is there a certain color? That's is really an opportunity for you to think about how, if you haven't, or to actually put into action how you're going to blend your brand and the visual components of this book. I also like this because as someone who also does tend to spend a lot of time writing, there's times where I just hit a wall. Maybe I've been writing for too long. Maybe I just need a break because I don't know how to articulate a particular thing. The book cover activity is way just to kind of give the writing side of your brain a rest and give the visual side of your brain the ability to be creative and the ability to exercise some of those more creative muscles, and take a break from reading or looking at lines and lines of copy and words. So this is totally an additional extra thing, but it is kind of in there so that if your brain needs a break, we can also give you an activity that's going to contribute to your book as well, and also kind of give you the opportunity to exercise those more creative muscles. I see Hatem, you raised your hand first. Did you have a question?
No, thanks. I'm having technical difficulties. I think Lacan raised his hand.
I did see that also. Lacan, what question did you have?
The template, the cover brief template doesn't work.
Yeah.
It says I can't access it. I don't know if that's on purpose or.
Let me see what I can do. Give me a moment. Let me copy the link and okay, so I'm going to show you what I have for this template, and I'll try and I'll put the link to this in the chat, but let's take a look real quick. So this is what it looks like. Just real quick, it kind of, breaks down your title, your subtitle, what your designer needs to know, your kind of informal book description and your informal persona, your biography. So this is just kind of the stuff that your book cover designer is going to need to know. So we want you to start thinking about that now. But I will real quick toss this link into chat.
I was going to say, I just found it. It's just that the link in the document doesn't work, but I've already saved it earlier on, I think. So I've got it.
Yeah. So a lot of the times with the workbook, if you hover over it, it'll give you a chance to copy the link. And then if you open it in a separate tab or a separate window, then it works most of the time for me to do that. But I also would never say that I'm like by any means a computer. Whoa, I just turned pretty purple, didn't I? Oh my goodness. Yes. Okay. So, yeah, I'm not like a SME at technology, but when I hover and copy the link and then open it in another tab or window, that seems to work for me. But once again, not a SME at technology. So really, there's a couple of things I want to discuss about the book cover activity. There's a lot of psychology that is behind a lot of design concepts and principles. And we note that in the workbook, and we link you to some articles or wiki kind of content that talks about the why behind these concepts. So the first one is the picture superiority effect. Very simply put, the human eye and brain process information that is visual way faster than information that is textual, information that we have to read. That's why a book cover is one of the reasons why it's so super important. First of all, it might be the first impression that an audience gets of your book. So we also want to make it visually and aesthetically appealing in a way that's going to make them say, ooh, like this looks interesting. But at the same time, we also want to use some kind of graphic or some kind of visual that is going to be able to kind of translate the topic that you're talking about and visually present with information, because they're going to kind of take that in far quicker than they take in your title, your bio, your book description. And there's a little article linked in here that you can read about why visuals are taken in quicker and processed quicker and why that first impression is very important. Point number 2 is typography. Typeface is the actual type title that you choose. Times New Roman, Arial. Font is the style of that typeface. So the font is it bold? How, you know, is it serif? Is it serif? Is it sans serif? Is there spacing between the letters? Those are more of font topics. But something that is interesting is that a lot of typefaces and a lot of the science behind typography is that there are kind of just general feelings that people get when they look at certain typefaces. A lot of our sans serif fonts, which are the ones that have the little hat or the little feet, those are typically thought of as being more formal, more business, kind of something that perhaps is more business in nature, whereas our serif fonts a lot of the times are more modern. They can be cursive. They can be, this would be a good example where there's no feet on any of these, and they do present sometimes a feeling when we look at them, or at least give us maybe a bit of feeling of perhaps what tone the book is going to be written in or what the topic is about. So it is important for us to put thought into that because we want everything to be in alignment with what we want the audience to walk away with. And along that line, color. There is a myriad of study and research behind color theory and color in design. There is kind of very basic human emotion and sentiment that each color tends to bring about in people. A lot of the times we see greens used for content that is about prosperity or is about financial gain. We see red fonts used when we're talking about how not to do something, or no, or stop, or stay away. Something that's exclamatory usually in nature. We see blue used when the tone is calm, or we want the visuals to be more kind of chill in nature. So color definitely, and once again, this is also a point where we can talk about if you have a new brand that you're building out, if you have a professional brand that you want to integrate, let's keep our colors in alignment with your brand also. So there is that very quick visual recognition. I know her logo looks like this. I know her logo is this color. This book looks very similar to that. So I know very quickly that these two things have something in common. And then we do have some examples also in here of the kind of different ways that color can be used and is used. So yeah, those are definitely 3 very important things to think about because it's not as cut and dry. There's definitely psychology behind those choices that we want you to think about because we want the message that your typeface, that your font choice, that your colors, that your sizes, we want the tone and the message that those are sending to be in alignment with your author bio, your persona, and your book description. We want all of those things to match in some way. So that's why we also kind of present this activity to do in coordination with the author bio and the book description, because we're hoping, once again, oh man, I've written so much, I need a break. But when I go and do the visuals or think about the visuals, I know I'm attracted to this color because I think this color really presents something that is very synonymous to what my book talks about. Okay, well then now I'm starting to put a finger on the emotion and the feeling that I want my audience to have. How do I now go replicate that perhaps in my bio and in my book description? Are there any questions? We'll pause here for a little bit. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, I'm seeing heads shake. Well, that's wonderful. We're going to take the next probably 15 minutes, and I'm going to give you guys time to actually begin your author bio, work more on your author bio if you've already been doing that. Look at, start to think about or begin to work on your book description, add more, change your book description. I'm going to give you 15 minutes to do that. We'll come back at 12:55 Eastern Standard. And anyone who would like to share, I think this is a great forum to do that. No one is here to critique at this point. No one is here to tell you that's not going to work. I don't like that, because right now it's not about the end product. It's about the process, and it's about starting the process way early before we have to concretely say, this is it and it's not changing. So let's take 15 minutes to do that. 12:55 Eastern Standard. We'll jump back on and see if anyone has anything they want to share. Okay?
Thanks.
I'm going to let you guys know real quick. I'm also going to stop recording right now just so that anyone who is going to watch this doesn't have to sit through 15 minutes of silence. So just so you guys